So we're here in Oklahoma City, just to the southeast of downtown Oklahoma City, about to check out the First Americans Museum, a museum that's over 20 years in the making. If you've ever been in Oklahoma City, you've seen this very unique architectural structure that's here behind me. It's sat abandoned for quite some time, but they're finally up and running. Let's go in and check out to see everything that they have to tell us about the 39 tribes that live here in Oklahoma and all things First American. So right here outside of the entryway is an archway that kind of leads you up into the museum with an open hand. That open hand is symbolic for friendship. So they wanted to make sure that that was the first thing that visitors saw as they walked into the museum, was an open hand saying, "Welcome, friends." So while Winneco is closed down and they're doing the renovations of that, they've temporarily reduced the admission prices until that gets back opened up. Adults 13 and up, $10. Youth 4 to 12 are $1. 3 and under is free. If you're a tribal senior, which is 62 and up, or military, it's $5. And if you're a student 13 and over, it's $5. They also have membership for individuals. It starts at about $65, and for families, that's going to run right around $125. And that's going to get you admission in for a year, plus discounts in the store and at the restaurant and some of the different classes that they have throughout the course of the year. So inside the First American Museum, there are two galleries, Winneco and Oklahoma. Winneco actually comes to us from the National Museum of the American Indian. It's currently closed while they take care of it and make sure that all of the artifacts that are up there are being taken care of and aren't deteriorating. So it's going to be closed till mid-March. But today we're going to go through Oklahoma and see all of the amazing exhibits that are in there. So the entrance to the Oklahoma exhibit is actually on the other side of this piece of art. It's called Origins, and it's inside of a 320-degree theater that tells the story of 4 Native American ancestry stories. Let's go take a peek and see what it looks like on the other side of this wall.
Imparted wisdom to all of our many tribes. We were each gifted unique origin stories that help us understand how the world came into being. So
So the first part of Oklahoma is dedicated to the origins of the 39 tribes that are here in Oklahoma up until the year 1830. You can kind of see a linear timeline of some of the highlights and lowlights of the 39 tribes. The highlights are these that are here in red. For example, the spread of corn across the continent, the Great Law of Peace. Then you get to the black, which are kind of some of the darker times, like the fur trade wars, the French and Indian War. And then you kind of have these in-betweens that are kind of half black and half red. And it's just kind of one of those in-betweens where it's both a time of peace and prosperity, as well as trial and tribulation. So really interesting as you walk through, you can kind of get a feel for how Native American history is viewed in their own eyes. A lot of different artifacts all throughout here from all different time spans of the world. For example, you've got this King George II Silver Peace Medal from 1757, the Andrew Jackson Peace Medal, 1829, all the way up until 2020. A lot of history in this building. A lot of different Native American weaponry, going all the way back to war clubs from 1780 to tomahawks to even pistols. A lot of the same traditional artistic styles of pottery and weaving are still used today. So even though these look old, these are still fairly new, being created in 2020. So the next part of the gallery takes place between the years 1830 up to 1907, when Oklahoma became a state, kind of when the Native Americans were first contacted. And it starts right here in 1830 when the Indian Removal Act was signed, and all of the tribes were displaced and said, you need to go somewhere else. And that's how they ended up out here. So there's a lot of dark history that's here. For example, children as young as 2 were taken from their families and placed at the Haskell Institute from 1880 to 89. Little tiny shoes. So in 1830, each of these circles represents one of the tribes spread all across the United States. And then here in 1907, all condensed down to little tiny dots that now make up the state of Oklahoma. And then here in 2015, the graphical representation of all of the different tribal lands that spread all throughout the state of Oklahoma. So the last section of this particular part of the exhibit goes from 1907 statehood of Oklahoma up until present day. It's a new era in Native American history, and culture is changing, and they're starting to tell a brand new story of their own, even all the way here in 2022. The artwork even carries over into the judicial branch, where we've got a beaded gavel, and into the medical field we've got a beaded stethoscope, showing their Native American pride and to the lines of work that they've chosen to do. So this is the Community Voices Theater, which is a 4D audio experience. It's hard to tell, but it's in the shape of Oklahoma. We've got the Panhandle way over here, leading into what is the mainland of Oklahoma, and it's really just a representation of the sounds and the voices that you would hear come from the different 39 tribes, as represented here on the blue stripe that goes across. One of the things they wanted to do in the First Americans Museum was kind of take control of the narrative and some of the misrepresentations of Native American history and culture. For example, the sexy Princess Smokin' Signals costume. I don't think that you would ever see that in traditional Native American gatherings. All the different uses of Native American headdress and imagery and marketing, even in pop culture, such as the Bugs Bunny and the Indians book. It really just gives them a way to rescope the conversation into telling the story of who they actually are, and not the misrepresentation that often a lot of Americans have about Native Americans. So here they say that laughter is good medicine, and with all the stereotypes and lies that have been told all throughout history that can honestly be quite hurtful, a lot of Native American culture has chosen to answer with their own unique sense of humor, and you see that a lot here. Using pop culture, here's Yoda, dressed in Native American garb. It's pretty good, Space Invaders, but using bow and arrow. This is pretty telling. It's a doctor taking care of a Native American little girl. It says, here's the problem. You're suffering from a stereotype. So in Oklahoma, traditional powwows still continue to this day. This represents a powwow van where you would actually get in a van with some of your friends and family and gather around to go to a powwow, and you can actually go around this corner and go on a virtual ride
Gonna go over there and check out that bow
to the
and arrow
powwow.
competition. Shoot them bow and arrows that old way, old style. Also go check out the carnival and see what's going on. Give me an Indian dog, maybe a big piece of fried bread.
Here's a quick look at Native American influence in modern American sports. This is an interactive exhibit of the oldest game, probably one of the oldest games in the world, Chunky. I'm going to stand on the marked spot to begin. Okay. Alright, so we're going to roll the stone. Throw the stick. And run the field. Oh, I've got to go get the stick. Okay. I don't think I did well. I think the computer got me pretty good there. So we moved from Native American influence from sports, kind of bridged perfectly into warriors. So you've got all the warriors within sports here.
It's part of the world. I know for the Pawnee people, they depended on the warriors.
And wants to make a difference. And one of the things I talk about with students that I work with is it's in our DNA. You know, as engineers and scientists, you know, from my background.
So in 2005, when they broke ground, they held a blessing ceremony in which a representative of all 39 tribes came out. They lit a fire, and then they've gathered the ashes and put them on display here, right at the end of the exhibit. So this is a miniature scaled model of the grounds of the First American Museum. And they've done these video overlays, and it's pretty remarkable what they've done here. There's the sun traveling over the property. So inside the First American Museum, there's a couple of different restaurants. We're going to check out 39, which is going to be their higher-end restaurant. It's a little nicer. It's got a little bar area in there. The menu here looks amazing. Skillet cornbread, butternut squash soup, a couple of different salads, a Three Sisters saute, but the thing that really caught my eye is this hominy stew. So here's the hominy stew. I added some fry bread because I love fry bread. Oh my gosh, it's very hot. This smells amazing. Let's dive into it. Alright, so lunch was just as good as I thought it was going to be. Really flavorful. And overall, it's been an amazing day here at the First Americans Museum. If you're ever in Oklahoma City, I can't recommend it enough. Come on out, learn something new about the First Americans.